Okay, let's take a look at Project 10. Now, the basic idea of Project 10 is for us to write a program that's going to actually interact with the web. So we're going to get our input. We're going to be getting some instantaneous data off the internet. And it turns out that with Python, this is not very hard to do. So here's the page. Here's the description. And what I'd like to do is just take one of these and see what happens when I click on it. All right. And what happens is that we get a conversion from, in this case, $100 to what we get in Swedish kroners, just picking that for this time. So $100 is 661 and something Swedish kroners. Now the interesting part, though, is to look at what I actually did, which was to simply enter a URL with A being 100, the from being USD, and the to being Swedish kroner. Typing that in to the URL, I get the conversion, and I can change that very easily. Suppose I wanted to make it $200 instead of $100. I get that conversion, and we see twice as much Swedish kroners. We can convert it to euros. Instead of having Swedish kroner, we just type in EUR, and now we see that we get a conversion into $200 now is 148 something euros. All this was done by changing some values in the URL, and I encourage you to start out by typing that in, and you can see by whatever you enter in there, you get those values. Now, the other thing is that this isn't really what gets returned. And so if I go into View and Developer and say View Source, we see this is actually what gets returned, and then this page is what is displayed. And so, of course, we're going to get back this big string which has all sorts of currencies and things like that. But it turns out that the only thing that we're interested in is this little amount right here in this line. So what our task is going to be is to send a URL out to the web, get back this big long, 300-400 lines of stuff, and extract out the particular value we're interested in. Because we're going to give it the 200 and the US dollars and ask it to convert it. But the part that we're interested in this case, is that we're getting 148 euros back. So our task is basically send a URL with the 200 US dollars and the euro, and we get back this long string of which I have to extract out this 148.16. So how does that actually work? Well, if we take a look at the project description, we see that there's a little bit of Python here. So we can import this URL lib. We can make a call to a particular URL with, there it is, my amount being $100. We're going from US dollars to Swedish kroners. And once I get that value, this web object, it actually comes back as a bunch of bytes. We have to convert it to a string, and then it's good to close it off. the end result is this big string, and then I have to find out the converted value in there. If I try this in the in a shell, I've already entered in the first line importing the URL lib, and then I've done the get the web object. Let's convert that now to a string. And then close it up, just like it's like reading a file, right? We open it, we get the stuff we want, and then we close it. So that takes down my connection to the internet because I'm done with it. Now what do I have? If I want to print that, you see we get this massive string, but at the very end we can see down here that here is this ID currency converter result of 100 US dollars to, and we get back the 661.76 Swedish kroners. So out of all that stuff, and again, this looks like one, it's one big string. On the when we viewed the source, we saw a whole bunch of lines, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of lines, backslash n's in there. So what we're interested in then is just extracting this out of there. Now, how do I do that? Well, it's just a string. There's this currency converter only shows up in one place. You know how to take a string, you can split, you can find, you can do all these things to try, to then extract that value there. And I encourage you to do that in the shell. Play around with it in the shell, so I can take things like, I can take, this is called, I'll just say x equals results string dot split. Well, let's split it on this string currency converter. And what do we get? Well, if I look at my x, it's two huge things. But if I look at the second piece of it, what do I see? Well, I now have a much shorter string that still has all the stuff that I want in it. It's got the $100 that I started with, but in particular, it's got that particular value. So I can go, I can do some splitting and stripping and finding and various string operations until I figure out some way to extract out that 661. And that becomes the essence of the conversion, because I'm going to take the $100 and I'm going to convert it. And remember that what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this URL with the 100 from the US dollars, in this case to Swedish kroners. And so what I need to do is build a string to put inside of these parentheses, right, that has the 100, the USD, and the SEK in it. And then I get back from that this results string, and then I have to strip and whatever I want to it. And that's how I do the conversion. Because in this project, what I want to do is I want to know what the immediate conversion value is. So if I have, if I say, all right, what's 100 US dollars? We're going to go out and find out on the web what that value, what that conversion is right now. and then I'm going to do something with it. So that's the essence of this project. And we're going to build a class out of this, and the class is going to have some useful things to it. So for example, I would like to be able to create a currency, in this case $7.50 US dollars. I'd like to print it out, create 2 euros, print that out, take the, in this case, take the euros and convert it to US dollars. And what's going to happen in there? Well, I'm going to do all this code here inside this conversion. I'm going to go out to the web, get the value, get the current conversion of that, and in this case I take what I got back. That's my new currency. I can print it. And the other nice thing that I can do here is I can do arithmetic. So if I have 2 different currencies, I can add them together, even though they are of, the first one's in dollars, the second one's in euros. We can handle that. What'll it do? Well, it will take, the first one is in dollars, so it will do this calculation in dollars, and that's what will be shown there. So we have to do arithmetic, and we have to do conversions, and you're going to build a class that is going to do that. And it's going to be, we'll have many characteristics similar to the triangle class that you just did. So if I take a look at the specifications of the class, being a class that of course has an init, and it will take 2 arguments, an amount and a currency code, and it will have a default being 1 for the amount and dollars for the currency code. And then, most important, it has this convert to method. And what that will do is that will use the URL lib and go out the internet, get the value, and do the conversion. But we do some other things. We need to be able to print, so we have an str. We need to be able to add, and we have to be able to add numbers on there, and subtract. Remember, subtraction isn't commutative, so when you do the R sub, you got to watch out for that. We'll do greater than in the representation. The arithmetic ones must all return something of type currency. That's how we always do those. And I said that you only need to do these particular currencies: dollars, euros, Swedish kroners, Canadian dollars, Chinese currency, yen, and British pounds. I just picked them out. You can actually, if you if you wanted to do more, you're from a different country and want to play around with it, by all means put it in there. And like the last project, we're going to have excuse me, 2 different programs that we're going to hand in. One is going to be a test program to test out your class. So just like before, prove to the TA that the class does all it's supposed to do. And then we're going to have an application program just to use this class. Again, just like we did with the triangle ones. In this case, imagine that we have an account that has $1,000 that's fixed. You don't have to enter that. And what we're going to do is we're going to have deduct expenses. So imagine you're a traveler. You start out with $1,000 and you're visiting some different countries, and you're incurring expenses in euros and kroners and yen and so on. And you actually want to keep track of how many dollars you've spent, even though you're using different currencies. So you're going to start with $1,000, and then you're going to keep prompting the user, and every time then we'll enter things like 100 euros. And so we'll deduct that from our account, print out the balance in dollars, and then there's a little bit of error checking to be done. Deliverables, just like the last project, we have the currency class, a test to demonstrate that it works, and the short application.